The first one is we all want the same thing. And what I mean by that, the big idea there is that you and your clients want the same thing, which is a solution that solves the problem, right? Or helps them realize the opportunity that they're after. And that one's, I just find that it's easy to forget once we get into a sales situation on both sides. I've been on the other side as a buyer too, where you kind of forget that, we're both actually after the same thing in the end. If we can learn to trust each other, we're after the same thing. And that's important because if we have the same goal, we should be able to get to the same place. It serves as a reminder that we need to remind ourselves, and we need to remind the other party that we're both after the same thing. And the reason we know that this is important, when it comes down to price is only one. This is how you do it, is if you want to talk about how we want the same thing, you need to get off of price being the only resource that is important to them. It's the one that's easiest to identify, but there's also going to be two other big ones: time frame and personnel. And we'll talk more about this as these next 40 minutes roll on, but it's timeframes, personnel, and budget. So yes, money is important. Is it maybe more important than the other two? It could be, but God, I've run into more problems with, we have too many resource requirements on the personnel side for the solution to be implemented, and also the time frame. Oftentimes the time frame is super short, or the time frame is for the solution to actually take effect, especially with some of these lead generation solutions that I do. The time frame is so long that it doesn't work for the client. What's funny is it does, 2 years later, it works when it's implemented, but leading up to it, those 2 years are long years leading up to it. But think about this, is just check it against your logic, right? What happens if we have the perfect solution on all sides? Is it good for the client? Is it good for the client when the solution is right? Well, of course, because it provides the solution to the problem that they have, or it gives them the opportunity that they had identified and that they were going after. And from the seller side, it's perfect too, right? Because if it's the right solution, then you made a reasonable amount of money on providing the service or a product, and you have a happy client, right? They're not leaving you. On the flip side is, if it's not perfect, let's check the logic on that. If it's not perfect, we can say that from our perspective, that's an unhappy client, right? The good news is if it's not the perfect solution and the client didn't share all the resource restrictions or any of the changes that happened up front, they usually take the blame for it. I'm kidding. No client is ever going to take the blame. They're always going to blame you. So from our perspective, we need the right solution, because otherwise it's going to be all our fault anyway. So we might as well invest the time up front and make sure that it's that we're after what they actually need. On their side, they whatever problem or opportunity that they're chasing, if the solution doesn't get there, then they're not happy, right? Because they still have the problem or the opportunity is still unrealized. So that's how we know that we both really do want the same thing. And that's why we need to keep that in mind. And the way to do that, like I said, is get off of talking about price being the only piece that we're worried about, and put equal weight on personnel requirements and also time frame requirements, especially time frame. Time only goes one way, and we can have a long discussion about that, but it's really hard to shorten time frames. Most of them just get lengthened. Okay, so that's big idea number one. We all want the same thing.